Hi everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. I am back from the holidays spent with my family in New Hampshire, and I am so ready to jump in this devotional from By the Well for God, This I Know. Unfortunately, my camera wasn't recording when I first started this moon, but I think you'll get the gist of it. All I did was I created a circle, and then I actually watercolored with my Distress Oxides, and I used black soot. So I created a black background to begin with. And then I'm coming in here and I'm just using white and black acrylic paints with that. And I also use a white Neocolor 2 crayon. I grabbed some of my new Nuvo Embellishment Mousse and just added a little bit of sheen to the moon. But then I was having a hard time just toning that down a bit, so I end up just adding layer upon layer on this moon, and eventually it really turns out great. Although by now you may be wondering why I'm creating this moon anyhow in the first place, but I am going over day 3 of the devotional, which has a title, The Moon is Always Round. Over the holidays, I couldn't craft much because I was at my parents' in New Hampshire, so instead I decided to read the whole devotional before I could craft any of them, and this day really impacted me the most. Over the last couple days, with all that our country is seeing and going through, this devotional day means even more to me. Judy wrote our devotional this month, and she talks about in this devotional how when she went back to church, all the children were scared or fearful, a little nervous of all the changes that had come about because of COVID. And she writes in this devotional, I began looking for ways to help them deal with their fear. One such way was a book I read to them entitled The Moon is Always Round. A little side note, it is authored by Jonathan Gibson and illustrated by Joe Hawks. But she goes on, the true story tells of a father and son who loved looking at the moon. The son would comment on the shape of the moon, a banana shape, a squished orange shape, a half circle. But the dad would remind him that the moon is always round, even when he couldn't see it. He used that as an object lesson to teach that God is always good, even when we don't always see how. I think we can all use that reminder, especially during the last couple of days and last year. Judy ends her devotional with, This I know, God is good in spite of circumstances. The moon is always round and God is always good. I will echo Psalms 27:13. I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So that is the verse I chose to Bible journal today. I used this protractor from the Tools of the Trade stamp set, and I thought it was really neat as the protractor does make a circle, and so that kind of echoes the theme of the moon is always round. I had watercolored this page with some Distress Oxides before I stamped and embossed, simply because I didn't want a white border around my protractor, but I also added some mica spray from Tim Holtz that will just add a little bit of a metallic finish to the whole thing itself. And this little craft knife has been my friend the last couple projects, just to get those tiny little pieces out. A lot of times I don't want that extra paper in there, so this craft knife is an awesome little tool to pick up. Now for this background, I wanted a vintage kind of grungy look, so I ended up taking out my Distress Oxide color in Hickory Smoke and using that with just a makeup brush. Now a couple things wrong with this idea I had going on here. My Hickory Smoke is super inky. I just bought it that way. I probably should get some of that ink out so it's really dark. So when I use it with a makeup brush, it just kind of makes these splatters, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but it definitely makes splatters. Number 2 issue is I don't rinse out my makeup brush that often with my Distress Oxides, and I'm often using the color brown. So this brown is going to show through, especially when I add the water to soften up the page. But I actually love the brown and gray together. I think it's perfect, and I probably would have added brown anyhow, so I just killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm trying to see how to fill out this page some because I'm going to end up using like a cluster of tags, and so I put this tag on with the moon, and then I add a little piece of paper that has some floral and writing on it. Now this is from the Maggie Holmes I think it might be Heritage or Flourish. I'm not sure which collection it is, but I just cut a little bit out. It almost looks like it's from a newspaper or an old floral book. So I'm just gonna put that to the side, but something's missing. So I end up taking out this background stamp called Blueprint Texture, and I'm gonna use the Hickory Smoke in the archival ink and just stamp that around the background, and it actually fills it out quite a bit, and it's really nice. Now I do have an acrylic block that would fit this stamp, but I actually like using these background stamps without acrylic blocks. I like the imperfection of them, so I just kind of smooth it around with my fingertips, not even my hand. I don't smush, I just use my fingertips and get a light impression of the background. Now after creating these circles with my background stamp, I still think I need a little bit more grunge. So I'm gonna grab my black Sit Distress Oxide and mix that together with some texture paste, and I'll put that through the stencil just to add some splotches around the page. So I'll add some to the bottom right hand corner and also a little bit up at the top. I want to add a little bit more color to my mixed media tag. So I take some frayed burlap, and then I will also add a little bit of ground espresso to the edges just to add some dimension. After I brush this tag with some color, I want to add a little bit more to the background of this tag. So I'm gonna take a new stamp set I got from Christmas. It is from Tim Holtz. It's from the stamp set called Etc. I'm gonna take this one that has written dates on it, just because I want to remind myself that no matter what day of the year, no matter what it looks like in our society, in our world, in our government, God is always good. He is always on the throne, just like the moon is always round no matter what it looks like in the sky. I'm using the new Cornerstone Alpha from By the Well for God. It is a bigger, gorgeous alpha stamp set, and I know they were having a limited supply earlier in the month, but they were planning to reorder more. So if you see it in the shop, definitely pick it up when you can. So I'm just using this to spell out moon with my VersaFine ink, and then the rest of the title I will spell out with my Tile Alphas. They have a gray this month in that Tile Alpha set, and it matches perfectly with how I created my moon. One little suggestion I have for using these Tile Alphas is to grab a pair of craft tweezers like this one, and it makes putting them on a page significantly easier. They're not hard to get off the actual sticker sheet, but I like being able to use these tweezers so I can see where I'm putting them and where I'm placing them to make sure they're all in a straight line. I'll start laying everything down and gluing it down. I'm just trying to make sure I have all the placement I want. Now I do want to add this little hymn page because I think it adds just a little bit of something. I just don't know. I love my hymn books. So I'm going to add that to the side, and then I'm going to use this fabric from Hobby Lobby. And sometimes I don't like using my sewing machine. I don't know about everyone else, but sometimes it's a little bit of a bother to use. So I end up using my tiny attacher, and I'm just gonna staple it the way I want gathered. And then I will use my Fabri-Tac glue that I'm loving lately. I know I keep talking about it, but it is just awesome, guys. And I'm just gonna glue that to the back of my tag. And it works the same as using the sewing machine, except probably faster than getting my sewing machine ready to use. So I don't mind using the sewing machine. I like having the threads, but sometimes this is just easier, especially when kids are sleeping. I'll add a little bit of distress to this hymn book page, and then I'm gonna cut out a little bit more fabric to use at the top of my tag. Here I'm going to use my Tombow liquid adhesive. I want to use this up before I move on to another liquid adhesive that I'm going to try, but it is giving me a little bit of trouble, so I end up using my ATG gun as well, and I'll just start laying everything down. I'm going to put this protractor up on a little bit of foam adhesive just to add a little bit more depth to this page and just make it not so flat. Another suggestion that I have is when you want to layer things like this, put a bunch of adhesive on the main piece and then start adding your other small pieces to the back of that main piece, just so you know what it looks like before you have to lay it all down. So you're not doing the background pieces first without knowing where your main piece is going. So I'm taking out a date stamp I got from scrapbook.com. It kind of reminds me of Studio Calico's big roller date stamp that they have, except I don't have to store a big chunky thing in my drawer because this is just photopolymer stamps. But I want to make sure this date is big and bold because I want to remember on January 7th, 2021 that God is still good. No matter the circumstances I'm going through, no matter the circumstances the government is, no matter the circumstances the country is going through, no matter the circumstances my family is going through, God is still good. And so I want to remind myself of that as I flip through this Bible in years to come. So I did add just a little bit of Nuvo Drops to that tag to finish it off, and I will put a bow on top, and that will kind of fill it out for the page. So after thinking this page is done, I look at it and I'm like, wait, what if in 20 years I don't remember why I wrote the moon is always round? So I definitely wanted to document that. So I highlight the verse and I draw a little arrow, and then I'm going to make a cluster of paper over here, and it's going to say God is good despite circumstances, which is what Judy has put in her devotional. And so I just make a little cluster of paper, a little hymn book paper, and then this little saying that she said. And then I'm also going to add just a little bit of photo corners to this, just so it doesn't get lost in all the layering of paper. And then the page will truly be done. If you've enjoyed watching my page, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And also go ahead and follow me on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. I hope you all have a great day, and remember that God is sovereign and He is always good.